We're going to start where many anti-arguments start. So let's do it, antis. Alright, Leviticus has been used many times to defame gays. After all, it's an abomination, right? Yeah, guess what toeva is? Toeva is the word that is translated into abomination. However, I can think of another word that is in the Bible that is translated into abomination. If you look in Proverbs 6:16, you will see a list of 7 things God hates. And, well, we're not exactly scratching our heads on it. One of the things is shedding innocent blood. Yeah, it's pretty abominable right there. Link in the description. But it is a different word than toeva. And it's not even the plural form of toeva, toevat. Now, I'll admit, it is similar, but then again, so is same and sane. So, how do I fight toeva, or rather, abomination? Toeva, I believe, is a mistranslation, partially supported by Proverbs 6:16. Toeva has 2 basic, translations. The first one being, I will call it religious sin. Something that is a sin because it is religiously wrong. And public taboo. Wait a minute. There, I just pantomimed a toeva. Now, religious taboo gets broken down into idolatry. Hey, dude, that's in the 10 Commandments, dude. It's a biggie. And we also have ritual uncleanliness. If I'm correct, is a much more direct translation. But if I'm correct, it is essentially still dumbed down to a point of dogma. So, if indeed it should be abomination, if that's how God wanted it, it's kind of scary, because that means God is essentially saying homosexuality is sin because I dang well didn't like it. That says something very scary about God. Yeah, at that point, so much for loving and logical. But I believe God is a loving, logical God. So, first argument, I do not believe it is abomination. And that one can be supported by context. Context. Oh yeah. Here's an example of how context can screw you over. Remember the whole don't have a tattoo thing? Yeah, that was half a verse. Now, I'm not a grammar buff. Even though my mom is a grammar teacher, I'm not a grammar buff. Though I do think my grammar is at least a bit better than most people, but I'm still not perfect. So, I can't remember exactly how it is said, but more or less it says, don't get ritual scars for the dead, nor any markings on your flesh. So, we're going to ignore the fact that it does sound like that for the dead is modifying marks on the flesh. So more or less, yeah, if you're in mourning, don't get a tattoo commemorating it. Because as I understand, that was part of the pagan mourning process, or at least some of the pagan societies had that as their mourning process. And in fact, that is rather similar to the toeva of homosexuality. I would like to bring your attention to the fact that both chapters, the 18th and 20th, 18 and 22 is where we get the specific verse for 18, and the 13th verse of 20 is where we get that one. The 18 and 20, as I recall, talked about Egypt and I think it's called Canaan, I want to say. Dang it, I'm not sure if I got it said right, but still. 20 gets more specific, though. Molech. Molech was a not very nice Canaanite god. Canaanite. I don't think it was Canaanite because that's the more appropriate phrase for vampires than Vampire the Masquerade, so... crap. You'd think being a long-time Christian I'd be able to say that dang word right, but whatever. So, we've got 2 pagan societies, one chapter talking about 2 pagan societies, one talking about a specific god who did who was worshipped through some, especially by Christian standards, not nice things, but something we can all agree about. It's not exactly that nice to go around sacrificing your children. Yeah, can you see why God would like to separate his children from that? From Molech? So, both of these are talking about pagan societies. And as I understand it, it was a common thing for pagans to have temple prostitutes. Temple prostitutes, cult prostitutes, sacred prostitutes. Yeah, that was the other one I was looking for. In fact, there are 3 other verses that, if you read the King James Version, you're going to miss it horribly. But, if you look at, if I'm correct, any other translation in the world that does not omit these verses, you will find out that Deuteronomy 13:17, 1 Kings 14:24, and 2 Kings 23:7, all of them are talking about sacred temple cult prostitutes, who, as I understand it, were supposed to be ritually symbolic of their god. More or less, as I understand it, was a lot to do with fertility rites. So, yeah, we're not talking about a loving, committed homosexual relationship. We're talking about, essentially, a holy one-night stand for fertility. So, I'm sorry if I'm, what can I say, loving, logical God. I mean, if nothing else, you want the logical part in, well, he's only going to decry male homosexuality and say nothing on the female? I mean, admittedly, we can make tons of jokes about the fact God's obviously a dude on this, but I don't think God is going to set up in advance several thousand years of oppression just so I can make a joke at his expense. So, loving, logical God. Toeva, most likely a bad translation. That, and also, there is another word besides the one that is similar to Toeva that could have gone in as well. If you look in the first link from the first video, you will, and go to the bottom, there's described a word, I don't know how to say it, it begins with Z, and if I'm correct, it was to describe things that were wrong in of themselves, not for dogmatic reasons, in of themselves. So, 2 words that could have easily have made this video never exist if they weren't used. We also can argue that we did not know the whole story. And they're also both in Leviticus. Well, when's the last time you had bacon? You dirty, filthy, horrible sinner. So, we started where I started. And now we move gallantly in a different order. I don't have a good sense of memory. So, moving on.